A source tells Fox 5 a joint statement on negotiations with the Oakland A's could come as soon as tomorrow. This comes after lawmakers reportedly reached a loose verbal agreement with the team to finance a ballpark in Las Vegas. The plan is to build at the site of the Tropicana Hotel. We know it's contingent on some guarantees from the team. It's unclear what those are tonight. Details of the deal have changed over the past few hours. At last check tonight, a source at the table says the state is offering $180 million in the form of tax breaks and bonds. That's on top of $125 million in bonds and $25 million in direct funding the county would be expected to kick in. Some lawmakers want Clark County to even split financing. Altogether, that leaves a $65 million gap between $330 million on the table and $395 million that the A's want. Tonight, Fox 5 is diving into those numbers and getting answers. Can the A's cover that $65 million divide? Fox 5's Mike Allen joining us now from the latest proposed site for the stadium to break it all down for us.
Jacqueline, that public money that's on the table right now accounts for 22% of the estimated $1.5 billion that it would take to build a stadium right here behind me on the site of the Tropicana. And that $65 million gap, that's 4%. So the question now becomes, are the A's willing to swallow that 4% that they're right now asking to be financed by the public? In order to answer the question of whether the Oakland A's can afford to spend more than $1 billion to move to Las Vegas, we first need to understand how the franchise handles its money. According to publicly available data, since buying the team in 2005, John Fisher has seen revenue go up more than 50%. Over the last decade, the team's average payroll accounts for a third of the team's average revenue. Compare that to the rest of the league, where teams spend more than half their revenue on player salaries. It should be noted, half those seasons ended in a winning record for the A's, which attests to the front office's experience in putting together a winner with low payrolls. The question then becomes, will that extra money he's saved be enough to bridge the $65 million gap between his request and Nevada's proposal of 22% public financing and funding? I took a look at the other big stadium project here in the Valley and elsewhere in Major League Baseball to get a gauge of how that 22% stacks up. When the Raiders got $750 million in public financing to cover the cost of Allegiant Stadium, it meant the public was footing 40% of the bill for that project. That money came from bonds and a hotel tax. The 22% share of public financing on the table for the A's is not only less than what the Raiders got, it's also less than almost every other modern Major League ballpark. In the last 25 years, there have been 18 new Major League parks built, and only 2 of them have been financed with less than 22% of public money: Yankee Stadium in New York and Oracle Park in San Francisco. The median percentage of public financing for MLB stadium construction in that time span is 67%. The bulk of that financing usually comes from municipal and county bonds, similar to Nevada's proposal. There are several that used money from hotel taxes, like Allegiant Stadium did, plus sales and car rental taxes. Now, although Allegiant Stadium got 40% of its financing from public money, just across the street from me, T-Mobile Arena, you might know, was 100% privately financed. Reporting live from the Trop tonight, Mike Allen, Fox 5 News, local Las Vegas.